There's endless opportunities because there's some freaky deaky stuff in that museum. But instead, I got to hear about his wife, his difficult, controlling Italian wife. The more you learn about patriarchy and all this crap, the more you see it. So then it kind of like you realize that, you know, just like white supremacy culture and all this other crap, it's the water we swim in. It is the air we breathe. And so you see it everywhere in everything all the time. And, you know, whatever, that's just part of like learning and growing. But it's funny because I realized in the last week how much when I travel and literally do anything, but just even travel, I'm like, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. You know? So let me give you some examples. Oh, look at this baby. Oh, he's got a droopy eye. Hopefully it's not a brain tumor. We're going to check that out in a couple hours anyway. So I just spent a week with my family. My stepmom and my sister came here to visit me, which was, you know, very special. And I'm very touched that they came all the way here. And there was a meeting of the families for the first time and all kinds of cool stuff. But one of the things that I realized, I went to Paris. I met my stepmom in Paris, and I was there for 3 days. And I've never really done Paris as a tourist. I've been there a few times, but usually it was like staying on someone's couch. Actually, every time it was either staying on someone's couch or staying in some Tinder date's bed, you know, or something like that. But it was never like a tourist experience. It was never like a hotel. Let me see the Louvre and then go to the Eiffel Tower. So this time it was like I was a tourist. And much different experience. You know, I'm like in around a lot of tourists, and you know, I was in like tour groups. You know, at Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, like we are in with a group of people. None of us know each other, and I'm just y'all. I had a male guide in both of them, not by choice. They can't help but include misogynistic jokes in their little tour. And it's so annoying. Even if, like, whatever, the second guy wasn't so bad. You know, he tried to bring in, like, he tried to bring in, like, a perspective that's not a cishet white man's perspective sometimes when talking about some of the pieces. I appreciated that effort, or that insights or education. But what I did not appreciate is that he made multiple jokes about his Italian wife, how difficult she was, like that was part of his tour. And I promise you, as someone who used to work in tourism, who used to be a mountain guide and a whitewater raft guide, the jokes that guides tell you, that means they're telling them to everyone. That is part of their script. Because you do this so much, you're not going to think of new jokes. You know, it's like a one-woman show. You've perfected. And yeah, you're going to like change things based on the people in the boats or the people in the Louvre or whatever. But like, you have your go-to jokes. You have your points that you're going to, you know, oh, you know, when I was a guide, I always talked about, you know, the history of the canyon and, you know, whatever. I like to talk about a lot of educational stuff around the environment and blah, blah, blah. But you always had your jokes that you hit because you need to be entertaining too, blah, blah, blah. So the fact that this man, part of his script is to make digs at his wife several times. Now, I don't doubt that he loves his wife, but part of performing masculinity is to make fun of your annoying freaking wife. And it's so, I mean, even to a group that is full of more than 50% women, I was just like, really? Of all the material, of all the things you can make fun of, first of all, I don't want to know about your wife. I don't want to know about y'all's relationship. I don't want to know about how she's just a typical Italian wife who's got la la la. Why do I need to know that? Make jokes about, I don't know, this ridiculous thing. Like, you know, he pointed this out. And he did make a couple of jokes about this. This is the first thing we saw at the Louvre. And, you know, this is one of the, like, principles of this. I'm not even going to look it up now. I forget who. But, like, that charity, I think, was what this principle is about. And, like, this dude, I think that's his granddaughter. I forget. I don't care, honestly. There's too much information in that museum for me to retain. And the most important stuff that I liked were the things that were talking about colonization. which should be a big part of anything that you're doing in France. Colonization should be a big part of that story, but whatever. That, you know, this man, like, his granddaughter or, like, grandniece or something nursed him while he was in prison. Like, do you know what I mean? There's endless opportunities. There's some freaky deaky stuff in that museum. But instead, I got to hear about his wife, his difficult, controlling Italian wife who just... I actually liked this guy. I thought this guy was a very good tour guide. And even this dude, who I felt was more enlightened or more progressive seeming than the dude who did the Eiffel Tower tour. I don't think the Eiffel Tower dude did anything. I can't remember any of his jokes. I remember there were a couple digs and I was like, really? Very intentionally sexist jokes, but they're just normalized. They're so normalized. They just throw it in there just for a cheap laugh. I said, man, always got to punch down. Got to punch down to get a good laugh because they're lazy. I cannot stand male comedians in general because they punch down so much. If they don't punch down and make good jokes, bravo. Join the club, bro. So many men, that's why I tell you, men's jokes are never just jokes. Why are you making fun of women? There's so many things you could be making fun of. Why are you making fun of us? To unite us somehow? But the thing that annoyed me when going on this tour, I got to go to the very top, you know, it was cool. This thing's expensive. I was very grateful. One of the things that I find really annoying about male guides in general, not always. I told you men are terrible leaders. I know, having been in leadership, outdoor adventure leadership for a long time. But in this regard, because there's nothing dangerous or adventurous about this, and they just overall like apathy, just like, and not thinking of the group, you know, not thinking of how slowly somebody who is in their 70s has to walk. Not thinking about the temperature, like the cold, not thinking about the children that are there and what they might need. You know, at the Eiffel Tower, you know, and there was like a dad. I loved seeing this dad. He was so involved. He was so kind. He was really taking charge of, like, he was not just a passive, you know, which is what I usually see on trips. So I just rolled over and did his little rotisserie chicken thing. You know, if you want to see how bad patriarchy is, go on vacation. Watch the dads. It's terrifying and enraging. But this, I was like, oh, yay, look at that. You know, she was terrified of birds. Like, at first it was pigeons. You know, I thought it was pigeons. And I was a little annoyed, like, oh, God, we got to listen to this girl, like, scream about the pigeons. And he was like, he was doing all this. He was doing a lot of emotional labor. He was really trying to, you know, give her that protective parent energy, you know. And then I was like, oh, okay, like I joined in and I was like, hey, we can make a circle so no pigeons get in, you know, whatever. Guide wasn't bothered. Guide didn't care. He like literally, I feel like the energy this man put, and I'm not saying that women can't do this too, okay? I'm just saying that, like, God, the leadership of men is so bad that a lot of, if it doesn't involve, even though the other guy was a great guide at the Louvre, he still was like, had to just, you know, lean a little bit too much into, you know, casual misogyny just to like unite the group through laughter. But this guy was more in the like, I'll do a little bit of that, but I just really don't care about the overall health of the group. Made no effort to connect us, which as a leader, I always try to connect the group, you know, get y'all talking to each other, you know? Talk to you some, right? Like, to be just like, and I get it. Tourists are so annoying. There's a reason why guides call them sheeple. People are the worst when they're tourists, even though they're in like the place they want to be. They just are like a lot of times overwhelmed, lost, make terrible decisions, and are kind of like children in a lot of ways, but in like the worst ways. So I get it. But like, if you pay a lot of money to do a tour and then you're just like, you act like you can't be bothered. You literally, your jokes are so scripted that you are like, can tell that he's like, ba-dum-bum, psh. You know what I mean? Just this like, this entitlement, this apathy, this not doing what leaders should do, which is good storytelling, and caring for the group and anticipating needs and all the things that, you know, mothers do, are expected to do, and women are expected to do in general for all of society. This dude couldn't be bothered, even though it was his job, you know? So not only will I never, ever let a man guide me unless I know that man in the outdoors, I don't really want them guiding me anywhere, not even through a museum or the Eiffel freaking Tower. Because one of the things that it requires to be a good leader is to think about the group and what's best for the group and put yourselves in the shoes of all the members of the group, and especially cater to like the weakest link, for lack of a better word, only by means of like when I did long backpacking courses, the slowest hiker we'd usually put in the middle, or sometimes, but never at the back. That's how you lose them. That's how you demoralize them. That's how you create so much tension and and danger, right? So if there's one person who's old in their 70s in your group, you gotta walk slower. Sorry, them the rules, If there's children, you're gonna have, you have to think about the entire group and what's best for the entire group and put yourself in their shoes, which requires a lot of empathy. So not only do men in general who haven't worked on this stuff and deconstructed this stuff and done the hard work of emotional intelligence, which we're not born with, we have to work on, why would you ever put them in any position of leadership, even the Eiffel Tower? Like even something as simple as the Eiffel freaking Tower, would you put them in leadership if they can't think, well, what would I want to hear? If I was, I don't know, a child, a woman, someone from other countries, what would I want to know about this thing? Rather than just showing up and doing the job and acting like you don't want to be there. You know what I mean? And again, I know what it's like to show up having to entertain on a regular. That's what I do now. But, at least I can choose a little bit more when I do it. But I still make content when I'm not feeling great. But I show up, I do the thing. And then I, cry myself to sleep or whatever, I don't do it at all if I'm just not in a good place. But I know you have to work it. I know all that, right? But it's just, like I can't imagine many women who would guide a group of people and be so seemingly annoyed that they have to do it. You know what I mean? And not at all concerned about the experience of the people, the feelings of the people, the group as a whole. Yeah. So they just, not only do they suck at leadership in the outdoors because they're dangerous as hell and overconfident and just to put you in danger, they're bad at dumb leadership stuff. Like taking someone up an elevator of a big old tower of metal, I can't believe I was even disappointed by that. Which leads me to my final point. This right here, this was my favorite piece at the Louvre. And I'm really glad our tour guide stopped at this one. I'm glad we heard the story behind this one. And actually, I was so interested in the story behind this piece, which is about it basically is an abolitionist piece, and it was a anti-colonialism piece, and the true story behind this painting is fascinating. I think I'm gonna do a whole story on it because I spent 2 hours researching it when I got home that night. I was up till late in the morning in the hotel lobby, so I didn't want to keep my stepmom awake, researching this story. That's how interested I was, because the leader was interested in it and the leader knew this was an important story. Sorry, tour guide, whatever. But he's still a white dude, so he kind of, didn't. I would have loved to heard the story of this from the perspective of a woman, of a black woman especially, because this was I got to do the story on this. But important information that was left out of this is how critical this piece was in terms of the abolitionist movement and the whole story behind how slavery was made illegal and then brought back, and then there part of this was touched on, but this story is bonkers. And there was a raft full of all these men who were eating each other, and there was one woman. That part was left out. I would love to know more about that part. One woman on a raft with a ton of men who are drunk and terrifying and unaliving people. What do you think happened to that woman on that raft? They literally ate people. This is way worse than a Dahmer story, the whatever you call it, Donner Pat, or the plane that crashed. These people eating So yeah, maybe I'll do a story on that. But the positions of leadership and who they're thinking about when doing the tour and who they're thinking about when teaching history of this big museum or big giant phallic thing in the middle of Paris. I want to know the history, but the people's history. The people's history is all I want to know about at this point in time. I know more about the white, male, cishet, rich perspective. I want to know the people's history. You know, and Howard Zinn, if you haven't read any of his stuff, that's a good place to start if you want that perspective. But again, men are terrible leaders, and they will never pass an opportunity to just make a dig at women. And my mutual friend Therese, her and I talk about this all the time. We'll just be out, just doing literally anything. And like men will just be like, hey. Like they don't just do this with other men, they do it with women. They're like, hey, crazy wife. Like, can y'all just not do that? Like it is so normalized to just hate women, hate your wife, hate women. So much so that somebody writes those jokes into their script. It's a 2-hour tour, I think, and of 45,000 pieces in a museum that are on display. There's like way more like not on display. That's going to be like a 1/15 of your material. Maybe even 1/10 of your material is to make fun of your Italian wife that I didn't even know you had, didn't need to know you had, don't care about. For what purpose? Peacock or what? That's a chicken. Mama, I'm performing masculinity, which is hating women. I love my wife, but she's a crazy bitch. And I liked this guy. I thought he was a great tour guide. But he just couldn't help himself. Anyway, please join my Patreon. Please follow me on all the apps since they are just, going away. Please join my Patreon. That is literally paying my bills. I can't, my views are the worst they've ever been since in a year. I don't know. Things are scary. December is supposed to be my biggest month, and it's like my worst month. So please set notifications. The algorithm is doing some weird stuff. Follow Patreon. Even if you can't afford it, get it there so you know when I have stuff released. Please participate in FemFreeze, femfreeze.org, in terms of holiday spending. And yeah, like, comment, share, all that stuff really helps. And my Patreon, I'm going to show a lot of my stuff from this last week. I'm just catching up with everything right now. Anyway, let me know if you heard the comments. Here she comes now, said I'm on meow, meow, meow. Comment song. She's overrated. Meow, meow, meow. But she went viral. Comment song. This is where you just type stuff while I'm doing random stuff. And I feel that you got a bad haircut. I said, yeah. Hey, white men all over this museum. I don't care who they are. Money, ride your pony. Look at all this stuff. Too much information to absorb and retain. But I tell you what, that's freaky dicky shit. Yeah. Like, I wonder why we have an interest problem. Anyways, stop your eye out. There's another story. I don't remember what it's about, but I took a picture. The Nike person. Nike, that's what branding does. Hey, lots of man caves. No wonder they killed all these people because, hey, you don't deserve this. Look at all these crowns. It's not even real. I think it was replaced by glass. Anyway. Too much wealth, stolen stuff. Anyway, that's what I want to know about. Anyway, baby, that bomb on the ceiling. Gold. All this stuff. Too much stuff. Can't retain all this stuff. I said, hey, I love this one too because it's about all liberation. Okay, I'm running out of steam, y'all. This is the Mona Pone comment song. Let me know if you heard it. Bye.